Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the latest edition of the World Report. I'm Scott Crowfoot. We'd like to thank the Rancho Mirage Public Library and the City of Rancho Mirage for being wonderful supporters of the World Report. On today's report, budgets, taxes, and the surging stock market. U.S.-backed forces are kicking ISIS out of its home field of Raqqa. New photos of highway construction in China could be tilting us towards World War III. Our political insider, Steve Bannon, declares war on the GOP, another brilliant Trumpian strategy. And our moment in history, the results of one of the most disastrous foreign policy decisions ever made by the United States. Now joining us is Editor-in-Chief of Beschloss Perspective and Senior Analyst for the World Report, Moritz Beschloss. Maury, our top stories today has to be the real collusion between Russia, Putin, the Uranium One deal, and the Clinton Foundation. New revelations show that the Clintons were getting millions and millions of dollars in kickbacks in order to get Vladimir Putin access to the United States uranium stockpile. This is a huge story, huge cover-up.
I think what both Clintons have done to this country is beneath contempt. I hate to use that word, but I'm being very honest with you. Anybody. This may sound funny, but when Clinton finished his second term, he took the mattresses from the beds and he took
the China
and anything they could carry. I don't want to go too far with this, but I think it's been a very crooked twosome, and I can only think out a million times that Hillary Clinton was not elected.
But, they've been talking about collusion with Russia for the past 2 years and come up with absolutely nothing, when the real collusion, and Trump is the one that brought this out during the campaign, that the real collusion was the $150 million that the Clinton Foundation got kicked back, the $500,000 that Bill Clinton got for a speech in Moscow, all the while Hillary Clinton signing off on the Uranium One deal, allowing Putin to get 20% of the U.S. stockpile of uranium. That, to me, is a tremendous cover-up. And Comey and Mueller and all the rest of these guys are all in on it as well.
Well, there's no question about it. Just look at this latest fracas, this protestation, where many of the members of the National Football League get down on their knees to show their contempt for the American flag. And you know who else is showing her contempt for the American flag and saying that these guys have the right to do so? Is Hillary Clinton, coming out with her book, which, by the way, she'll sign for you if you give her $6,500. And the money that she's made is supposed to go to charity. It'll go to the Clinton Foundation charity for themselves.
They come back as if being philanthropists for the poor, when all the while they're just getting themselves sickly rich. But this uranium deal is a huge deal because it directly involves the Russian government. And remember when Obama, when he thought he was off camera, and he said to Medvedev, hey, just tell Vlad, as soon as I get through this election, I'll have a lot more flexibility.
Absolutely. He was very close to Vladimir Putin. Absolutely. He made it very plain.
My last election, yeah. After my election, I have more flexibility.
Yeah, I understand. I transmit this information to Vladimir and understand
that anything Putin wanted to do, it's okay with them. When they took over the part of the Ukraine, the United States didn't do anything about it. They say that that this is you are taking away territory from a sovereign country, Ukraine, and they said, well, it's not a very nice thing to do, but they didn't do anything about it because at that time they were negotiating with Putin and making sure that he was being very, very helpful in having Hillary getting elected. And the one thing I still don't understand, you remember the last week before the election when Comey came out and
basically filed the indictment in front of us?
Yes.
And then said we don't have any reason?
Where Uma, her number one aide, was coming out with letters that hadn't been come out with. This I didn't understand. That finally put the dagger in her chances of winning those last few days. And this one, I still don't understand. He seemed to be playing both sides against the middle.
Who's playing both sides?
Comey, the head of the FBI at the time, who was subsequently fired by Trump.
Well, he was in on this too, because now we know that there's documents. They said there weren't any documents related to the tarmac meeting between Loretta Lynch and Bill Clinton in Phoenix in the middle of summer when he was going to go play golf, and they were talking about grandchildren, which she doesn't have any. Now the documents have come out when they denied that there were documents by the FBI once again. The FBI used to be the one organization you could look at without any impartiality at all.
Pure as a driven snow. The FBI, like CIA, on an international basis, we could always depend on. They were looking out for the interest of the American people in the United States.
And they've been corrupted by the left as well, just like everything else.
The thing that really still keeps getting to my throat is when I see those players, quote unquote, getting down on their knees and spitting at the United States of America flag. I mean, it's like having sanctuary states, sanctuary cities. I basically still consider myself a Chicagoan, even though I was born German and spent most of my business life in Chicago. But to think of Chicago being a sanctuary city, being protected by the mayor of that city.
And one of the most crime-ridden, dangerous cities in the world to be in. You're probably safer to be in Syria than you are in Chicago.
Well, no. I'm glad you brought that up. It's very interesting because the Miracle Mile in Chicago. Are you familiar with Chicago at all?
No,
well, the
thank
Miracle
God.
Mile is where they have all the good businesses.
But I'm going to be buried when I die in Chicago so I can keep voting.
Oh yeah, but that's not only. It's a sanctuary city. They are against everything that Trump is coming out with. The city of Chicago acts like they are a separate entity within the United States, which I never understood. It's unconstitutional, it's un-American, and a lot of people have been killed by murderers who came from not from Mexico, Salvador, wherever, and nothing was done to them. They were being protected by the sanctuary city. You know, there are 3 states in the United States that may as well not be in the United States.
California,
Is
Illinois,
Illinois, and New
York.
That's exactly right.
And New Jersey's not far behind.
Well, yeah, but those are the 3 states. Those are the 3 states that gave Mrs. Clinton the big vote that she got.
Well, we all know that anytime a Democrat is running for president, they automatically are starting out with a huge Electoral College lead.
With those 3 states, no question about it.
And if the left can turn Texas into a blue state, you can forget it.
Oh, you see, what has been happening, I have had very good contacts over the years with the labor unions. And, some of the labor unions are not the clearest and cleanest people in the world, but they're like anybody else. The guy who heads up United Mine Workers or United Auto Workers or coal miners, if they don't have any members, they don't have a job. And the word that came out from them, vote for Trump, because 68% of our gross domestic product, which is $8.75 trillion, 68% is consumption. Where is that consumption coming from? Not from our factories, not from our buildings, not from our abilities, but from China and from other East Asian countries, from
Mexico,
Germany. And this I don't understand to this point, how we are letting this country being taken away from us without anybody of any consequence saying enough is enough. If Trump woke up one morning and said, everything from now on is going to be an executive decree, I would support that. Because right now we're in a situation where it's getting better, but the basic American Constitution is based on following principles that were put together by the founding fathers. And then what also got me, and we've discussed it on this show, and people seem to be indifferent, knocking over monuments of people that happened, these on both sides of the fence, on the southern side as well as the north. But I'm beginning to see in this country a lack of
Decency.
uniformity is probably a better word. It seems like you can almost get away with anything now, and nobody's doing anything about it.
As long as the people that support Antifa and Black Lives Matter, as long as they agree with it, yes, you can get away with it. Pretty much anything.
I think this is heading for some. I don't know where it's heading to, but to me, it almost looks like in
Civil
history.
war?
No, I don't think we'll have a civil war, but I think we'll have an American people that's finally going to wake up. I think the key to look for is November 8th, 2018. The midterm elections. I think you're going to find a huge labor vote.
You know, one of the interesting things is that the people who support the left, that's very general, but in most cases support the left, when they come out with their anti-Chick-fil-A or they're pro-kneeling before the flag, or they're always in the minority and they think they're in the majority. Just like the Trump voters that came out last November, the Trump voters are the majority of this country and not the minority. And I think that the media and Hollywood and music and the left wing completely miscalculates where the American people are.
Oh, there's no question about it. I mean, American people, we have now 330 million people in this country, which in itself is amazing. You know, when I came to the United States in 1939, we had 120 million people. By the middle of the century, it was up to 160. Now we have 330 million people in the country. And
We need to slow it down a little bit, I think.
and what absolutely astounds me is that we have that many people. You know, we are the third largest population of any country in the world today.
Absolutely.